Hey guys, what's up? It's Fern. Thank you so much for joining me for another Planty video. I hope that you are doing so well. Olive is whining beside me. What would you like, ma'am? She wants her S-U-P-P-E-R. Okay, please hold. I'm gonna feed her. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about different tips and tricks and practices that we can implement into our houseplant hobby to make it a little bit more environmentally friendly. Some of these things I have talked about before on my channel, and I'm sure a lot of these things you are already doing, but I just kind of wanted to compile them into one place and kind of go more in depth on things that I get questions on a lot. I feel like the houseplant industry is very complex and layered. Like there's a lot of different ways that we can come at this and make changes, which is a good thing. There's tons of room for improvement. Before we get into the video, I really want to emphasize that the point is not to be perfect. The point is to make as many changes as we can, to implement them over time and just go at our own pace and do as much as we can. There's always room for improvement, especially for myself. Like, I'm nowhere near perfect when it comes to this. And I know that this video is just focused on houseplants, but there's so many other aspects of our life where we are able to make positive change as well, from what we wear, what we eat, our shopping habits, our transportation. Like there's so many things. So I think that any small changes we can make are really important. And on that note, I'm gonna give a huge shout out to today's sponsor. This video is kindly sponsored by Aspiration. As plant lovers, I know a lot of us are concerned about the well-being of the planet and what we can do to create some positive change. I know that I definitely am, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with Aspiration to share their new credit card, Aspiration Zero, with you. Aspiration Zero helps fight climate change every day by planting a tree for every single purchase. I think that this is so cool because it's something that you don't even have to think about, but yet you're still creating a large impact. Scalable reforestation has been identified as among some of the most effective strategies for climate mitigation, and we can contribute to that through something as simple as buying our groceries. We all have these necessary day-to-day purchases, so why not help the planet at the same time? Reaching carbon zero is easy. Just swipe your card 60 times that month. You can track your progress with the Aspiration app, and once you reach carbon zero, you'll be rewarded with 1% cash back. And even if you don't reach that, they're still gonna give you 0.5% cash back, which is awesome. You can also earn a $300 bonus if you spend $3,000 within the first 90 days. Planting 1 trillion trees could reduce current CO2 emissions by 25%, while restoring ecosystem biodiversity, agroforestry, and protecting wildlife. Aspiration ensures that trees planted are incremental, native, and protected. They also ensure that local residents are hired to plant the trees, helping out local economies. Every 1 million trees planted creates 10,000 workdays for local communities. To apply for the Aspiration Zero credit card, go to joinaspiration.com/wildfern. That's joinaspiration.com/wildfern to start making a positive impact on the planet today. Of course, I will have everything linked down in the description box for you. Thank you so much, Aspiration, for sponsoring this section of the video. Now let's get on to some of the tips. Okay, so the first tip that I want to talk about is to do with watering, and this is honestly something that sometimes I'm good about, sometimes I'm not, so a good reminder for me as well. But it's just to try to reuse and conserve water. So an easy way to do it is, well, for me at least, I water most of my houseplants at the sink, so if I water one through, I can hold it above another pot, so the plant underneath is going to get the water from the plant that you're currently watering, you know what I mean? You can even do it, I guess, not at the sink. Some people even have their plants set up so that they're like stacked, and then the bottom one gets the drip through from the top plant. I especially like to do this when I'm fertilizing, then I'm not wasting any of like the fertilizer as well. Another thing that I used to do this a lot actually is to put a bowl or basin or some kind of container in your sink and then water your plants through into that, and then once the bowl fills up a bit, then you can use that to water a different plant. So just like instead of the water going down the sink, you're reusing it for your other plants. And also, if you want to take a step further, this is always something that I have the intention and the goal to do, but I just never end up following through with it for whatever reason. I need to work on it. But collecting rainwater, this is like the best way I feel to water our plants, because first of all, it's going to be better quality than our tap water. Our plants are really going to enjoy it. And second of all, it's the most sustainable option. Like, it's falling from the sky. We can just collect it, bring it in, and then use it. So if you are someone who waters your houseplants with rainwater, you are like next level elite plant parent. I bow down to you. That is amazing. I actually have a bin that just like happened to collect a bunch of rainwater from when we got a whole lot of rain not long ago. So I should actually bring that in and see if I can use it. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can make your watering more sustainable. The second one is something that I get questions about a lot, and it is reusing soil amenities. Specifically, I get asked a lot regarding perlite and sphagnum moss. So I just want to say that I do reuse both of those, and pumice as well, like my pond. I reuse, if it can be boiled, I am reusing it for both environmental and financial reasons. This is the good thing, that a lot of these tips in this video and a lot of things when it comes to being more sustainable also save you money, so that's very nice as well, because things are expensive these days. But yes, I boil my perlite and sphagnum all the time. I was only doing it for like, I'd boil for like 10 minutes or so, maybe 15, and then somebody left me a comment and said that it actually takes like 20 to 30 minutes to actually kill, like if there's any bacteria or like anything funky in there, you should be boiling it for that long. So take that information as you will. But yeah, definitely can be reused. I literally just fill up a pot with water on the stove and then add my perlite or sphagnum to it, let it boil for however long, and then I put it into a strainer that I have designated just for my plant stuff, and then I just let it dry out, and once it's dry I store it in a container and then I reuse it. Also really great for using like reused sphagnum for moss poles. Yeah, I definitely reuse it, especially because it can be pricey as well. And I know sphagnum moss itself is just not very sustainable, so if you are using sphagnum, please boil it and reuse. I also reuse my potting mix a lot. Like if I'm repotting and the mix still looks fine and there's not like a pest issue, I will just reuse it. I fertilize really frequently anyways, so I'm sure you guys have seen me do this in repot with me before. I will just put the old soil back in, unless it's like old, really old, or like kind of use your own judgment, you know? If it's like nasty old potting mix, then you know, you can get rid of it. But if it's still usable, then I see no reason to toss it. So yeah, you just reuse what you can. Speaking of soil and potting mix, I know that this is a very hot topic and there's a lot of arguments over what is more sustainable. We definitely know that peat is not sustainable and just really hard on the environment. It grows extremely slowly and it's harvested from wetlands, which end up getting destroyed. And also peat moss is very important for getting rid of CO2 as well. You can find a lot of information online about peat moss. It's like the most demonized potting mix ingredient for a good reason. Now it gets a little bit more blurry when it comes to things like coconut coir. In my opinion, it is a lot more sustainable than peat moss, and I will always feel a lot more comfortable using coconut coir. I know that it's water intensive and it has to be shipped and whatnot, but if you compare that to something like the destruction of the peat bogs and peat moss and just how like non-regenerative that whole process is, I feel like the coconut byproduct is a better way to go. In my opinion, it's the lesser of two evils, which is why I choose to do a soilless potting mix. I have a whole video on my potting mix if you are interested. But the main point, like I say all this to say, yes, we need to be mindful about what we're using, but we also just need to consume less of it, and that's where the whole reusing thing really comes in. Okay, the next one is pretty straightforward, and it is just reusing and repurposing containers and pots and basically anything that you have around your house. I actually have a whole video about this. I will link it down below, but I did a whole video on like household items that I've repurposed to be planty items. So probably the most popular ones that I use are plastic cups, like Starbucks cups or any type of plastic clear cup. I will keep and use that for propagating or for pond. Also another big one is, for some reason it's always Thai food containers. Like that's always the containers that I like. It's just like the round, clear plastic containers. I really like reusing those for propagating. And then What else? Oh, my spray bottle. I have like an old Method household cleaner spray bottle that I now have my neem oil mixture in. Then I don't have to purchase like a new spray bottle and contribute to that plastic. There's so many things that we can repurpose, so you can go watch that video, but you catch my drift. Whatever you can reuse, definitely when it comes to like plant pots, I save all of my nursery pots and I reuse those. Reusing is a lot better than recycling. A lot of recycling, like what we put out on the curb, doesn't even actually get recycled, which is a whole other topic. So reusing things is definitely like the best route to go. Also, this next tip is kind of going off of that, and that is purchasing or finding things secondhand whenever possible. So when it comes to plant pots or plant like the clear vessels, you can find those at thrift stores. Like, do not buy a clear glass vessel for propagating or for pond or whatever you're using it for. Do not buy that new, because you can find those at the thrift store super easily. Even here, and our thrift stores like honestly suck. So definitely something that's easily thriftable. Also, Facebook Marketplace is really helpful for plant supplies in general. Actually, you can find a lot of stuff on there, or even in your PLANTY, just like plant groups in your city on Facebook. A lot of people are selling both like plant supplies that they don't use anymore or pots. Really great place to find plant pots. And this kind of goes into the whole topic of shopping locally as well, because not only is it more sustainable in that it like cuts down on shipping, but you're also just like supporting your local community. It's a lot more beneficial in more ways than just being environmentally sustainable. But also shopping locally for plants, I feel, is really important, because I know that importing has become a big thing, and I'm not demonizing importing plants. I know that that is like a big part of finding new cool plants. You have to import them a lot of the time, or just like finding plants at a reasonable price. Like, I totally get it, and I'm not like shunning. I've imported plants before. I'm in no way, shape, or form like shunning anybody who imports, but obviously that does carry a larger carbon footprint with it, and it's just something that we should be aware of. Like, I don't think it's something I would personally be doing very often. But yeah, you can kind of decide how you feel about that, and yeah. But the most sustainable option is going to be buying things locally, especially things that are grown locally or from other plant people in your community, and trading cuttings and things like that, or buying cuttings or plants, you know, from other people. One of the best things that we can do is just to use what we already have. So finding new purposes for things, DIYing things. An example of something that I started doing recently is putting my socks on my plants, which probably sounds really weird if you're new here, but in order to prevent algae from growing on my clear like cup plants, I've started putting socks on just to block out the light, and it's honestly worked like a charm. And it cracks me up, first of all. And second of all, it's so handy. Like, I didn't have to go out and buy anything. I didn't even have to make anything. I just found that. I just tried that out and it worked. So I'm sure that we have a lot of things like laying around our house that can be repurposed for other planty purposes as well. I'm sure a lot of you have done things similar, or yeah, discovered new uses for things. Leave me a comment below. I would love to hear like whatever creative DIY things that you have done for your plants. Also, using different containers that aren't meant to be planters as planters is another example of that, like using cups or using different like tins or whatever, like cool. I love when people do that, like plant things in just like random objects. I think that it's so awesome. Okay, so next I just want to talk a little bit about consumerism and being intentional with our purchases and just buying less. In general, the houseplant industry has become absolutely massive, and there's so many things being marketed at us, which some of these things are amazing and awesome and useful, and I think it's great, but I think that we need to be mindful of what we are actually going to use and using things up before buying more things. Just putting some mindfulness into it, right? And another thing that we can do is, if we do have something that is just sitting around that we don't really use, it didn't work for us, to pass that on to someone else so that they can use it, so that it's not just wasted. It doesn't just end up in the landfill. Facebook would also be a good spot to like give something away or sell something, or, you know, give it to one of your planty friends. I was thinking about this the other day because I started using my general hydroponics fertilizer that I hadn't touched in like a year, and then I started using it and I was like, wow, like I'm so glad I'm finally using this. And then I was like, I should have given this away. I'm thankful I still have it because now I'm using it and I'm loving it, but having something just like sit in my house for that long, like I feel like I should have given it away, but I didn't, and now I'm using it, which I'm really happy about. So yeah, just, you know, buying less, being intentional, using up what we have, and repurposing. That is like the main themes here. Again, we are not striving for perfection. There are definitely some things that I do that I'm just like not willing to budge on, which I don't even like the way that that sounds. Maybe I will one day, but at the point where I am right now, I'm not gonna be making those changes. Like for example, using fertilizer. A lot of people are against purchasing fertilizer because of the plastic or the chemicals or, you know, whatever it is. I'm sure that there's a lot of things that are unethical about fertilizer. But for me, I really value being able to fertilize my plants, and I know other people are okay with just using like coffee grounds or like whatever household things, or eggshells. I don't even eat eggs, so that's not an option, but whatever household things that they have around. But for me, I'm just at a point where like I'm probably just going to keep fertilizing my plants because that's just, I don't know, something that's important for me. But I am able to make a lot of changes in other areas in my plant collecting and in my life in general. So that is all that I have for you for this video. I hope that it was a good reminder or helpful or just enjoyable to watch. I don't know, like I said, leave me a comment. I would love to chat with you. I do think that it is a really important topic, and if you haven't seen my other video about repurposing household items to be planty items, then definitely make sure you check that out. Also, a huge thank you to Aspiration again for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out. Link will be in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being an awesome member of the plant community, for even being interested in this topic and watching a video like this. Like, I feel like the plant community is just filled with so many lovely, good-hearted, kind people who really do want to make a positive difference in the world. I just really appreciate that about this community. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!